On today's Palace of Pistons podcast, Marcus Sasser is playing some really good basketball. Has he earned a spot in Detroit's rotation moving forward? Should Cade Cunningham win Most Improved Player of the Year? And Ron Holland is having a breakout last week of basketball. All that and more on this week's edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast. Let's get it.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting night of NBA basketball.
The Pistons are digging in. They got the depth. They got the big men. They got the better basketball team. No doubt about it.
Pistons need a three, and they have just under 3 seconds to do it. Here's Chauncey Billups. Here it is. He's got it. He's got it. Chauncey Billups hits the three. Overtime. Amazing.
Out of bounds. Detroit basketball.
Pistons fans, hello and welcome back to another edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast, brought to you by Believe. It's myself, Aaron Johnson. Joining me is Jasper, Apollonia, and no Mike Anguilano tonight. You know, he's out doing bigger and better things. He's covering the Cleveland Cavaliers as a credentialed media member. Our young man is growing up. He's spreading his wings. He's doing big things, and he's left us in the dust. We miss you, Mike. But it's Jasper and I here today to talk about a Detroit Pistons team that has won 2 in a row heading into Friday night's game against Mike's Cleveland Cavaliers. We've got a lot to talk about. Jasper, quickly, though, before we get into it, hey, it's nice to have you here, my friend. How are we doing?
Always a pleasure, Aaron. And the Pistons continued their streak of losing a baffling game immediately the day after we give them a ton of praise on the podcast. They lost to the Dallas Mavericks, who had nobody healthy for them. So that was, I don't know why. We should probably continue the negativity. It seems to be working, but I think, unfortunately, we're going to have some more positives to talk about again. So we do apologize in advance to our fans and fans of the Pistons for this upcoming loss against the Cavaliers.
We could have a podcast where we talk super negatively about the Pistons and there's just a negative vibe, or, you know, we're talking about the issues that the team's having, our players having, whatever. They come out, they could be playing the Celtics or whoever the next night, and they'd win that game by 10, 15 points. You go on and you have a podcast where you talk super kindly about the team and the vibes feel really good and this player's doing this well and this player's having this success, and they go out and they lose to the Wizards. You know, it's just that's how it goes with us. It's what you get. I think this podcast is going to be somewhat positive. So if that's how you're feeling, maybe you go to Bet Online and you place a bet on the Cavs to cover tomorrow night against the Detroit Pistons, a Detroit Pistons team that will continue to be without Cade Cunningham. We're definitely going to talk about that a little bit later on. But before we do that, we do got to give a word to Bet Online, right? I mean, they support us each and every week, and they've been doing it for years now. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Even if your bracket is busted, Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action with a free Sweet 16 bracket and live betting on every remaining tournament game. With the largest selections of odds on everything from college basketball to MLB, NHL, and MMA, Bet Online continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, Bet Online has you covered with the odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. Not really any Cinderella stories, though, this year in the March Madness bracket. It's the year of the chalk, it seems. I mean, my bracket, you know, I like to take some swings on some teams that I think could make a run. Some of those, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seeds. It's just not happening this year. Jasper, how's your bracket doing?
Not so good. I actually, like, the first bracket I filled out was so much chalk, and I, in my head, went, oh, there's no way it's going to be all this chalk. So I switched a bunch of picks around. I still have, 6 of my Elite 8 teams in play, all my Final 4 teams in play. So we'll see. It's not over, but I'm not feeling great about it. I'll be honest with you.
I get it. No, I was kind of in the same position where I went through my bracket and I'm like, well, I'm just picking the better seed every time. And so I went back and I'm like, I gotta find some upsets. I gotta pick a team or two to ride that's gonna go on a little run here, at least get to the second weekend. But it's not gone well for me. I mean, I do still have the Final 4 teams still in play, but definitely some teams that I had making a run that did not make said run. But let's get into the Pistons, right? And as we do that, I just want to remind everyone, hey, wherever you're watching or listening from, go hit the follow button. Go hit the subscribe button. Go leave that like. Go leave that rating, that 5-star rating. go leave us a comment at the end of the show when you're done hearing us talk. Like, let us know what you thought about what we talked about. Seen some really nice comments in the comments on YouTube lately. Like, that's a really refreshing thing to see. People saying, hey, really appreciate the show. Great show. That kind of stuff makes me happy, makes me smile. But don't take that 10, 20, 30 seconds. Show us a little bit of support. It does mean the world to us. It helps us out a ton. So greatly appreciate that. Don't want to waste any more time. Let's get into this. And I think we're going to start off with something that's really, really interesting. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, Cade Cunningham, he's been out for the last few games with a left calf contusion. He missed the game against New Orleans. He missed the game against San Antonio, and he's slated to miss the game on Friday night against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So in his absence, Dennis Schroeder has started at point guard for Detroit, but Marcus Sasser has re-entered the Pistons rotation, and in these past two games has had some really, really impactful performances. Had 20 points in 26 minutes in Detroit's win over the Pelicans, and then had 27 points and 4 rebounds against the San Antonio Spurs the other night. Now, Sasser's not been in the rotation since Detroit acquired Schroeder at the trade deadline. So it's been a little over a month since he's been a staple in the rotation. But he's come back, and he's come back with a vengeance. He's having a much greater impact than he was having prior to the trade deadline. Jasper, what are your thoughts on Marcus Sasser? I mean, is he making a legitimate case to re-enter the rotation? Is it a symptom of, look, he's playing against some weaker teams. He's in a more advantageous spot. He's played some minutes with Dennis Schroeder. He's playing against these defenses that maybe aren't, all that great, and the Pistons haven't really needed him to face pressure and play in the half court and do all this these lead guard roles. I'm interested to hear what you have to say here.
Yeah, I don't feel any differently about Marcus Sasser than I have since pretty much they drafted him. I think he's a very limited player, but I want to give him his flowers while at the same time tempering expectations for fans. Look, I don't think Marcus Sasser is a guy who, if he's getting 20 minutes a game for 15 games in a row, is necessarily going to be a solution for you coming off the bench or, God forbid, as a starter. But he's shown in the past, when he scores, he's a very effective player. He hasn't been able to do so consistently, but he's definitely provided that kind of spark, that offense coming off the bench these last two games. It's been a huge reason the Pistons have won. Dennis Schroeder hasn't played all that great. But this is what you need as this kind of team. If you're the Pistons, you need to be able to weather the storm when Cade Cunningham goes down, when Tobias Harris or Tim Hardaway or anybody on this starting five happens to go down. You need to have answers in your back pocket. And Marcus Sasser is showing right now, look, even if he's not necessarily a long-term piece in Detroit, he's not a 10, 15 minute per game player. He's the type of guy that you can occasionally rely on to step in these kinds of situations and potentially give you a game-winning effort, as he did just the other night. So, yeah, I think we need to temper long-term expectations for Marcus Sasser, but at the same time, recognize how useful he's been these last couple games. And really, again, what it says about this team, where like a guy like Sasser can step in off the bench after getting such limited playing time and contribute in a winning manner immediately. Like he's playing like he's got something to prove, and he's proving it. So kudos to him.
I'm really in lockstep with you here, because I think Sasser deserves a lot of credit for how he came out and performed against New Orleans and San Antonio. And quite frankly, I don't know if the Pistons win that game against New Orleans. In fact, I'd say I'm pretty confident that they don't win that game without Marcus Sasser. Now, if you're telling me, okay, Cade Cunningham plays, it's a different story. But just looking at the team that was out there, let's say it was just a 9-man rotation. They didn't play Marcus Sasser. I don't think they win that game. His last two games have been really, really important for the Detroit Pistons. And it's good to see him out there having success. I do think it's some of what I said, though, right? He's playing against two teams, bad defenses, key guys out, end of season. they're not running a ton of high level offensive or defensive scheme. It's really just guys playing pickup. That's quite frankly what it is for some of these teams at this point in the season. And so he's capitalized on that a little bit. He's making some really difficult shots. He's making some tough threes. He's getting to the rim a little bit. And that's not to take away from those performances, though. Like, you still have to go out there and you have to make those shots. You have to hit those threes. You have to finish against a defense, against a defender at the rim. He has done that, and he deserves credit for that. But I just don't know if he goes back out there against Cleveland on Friday or against, Oklahoma City later this season or Milwaukee. Like, I just don't know if he has that same effect against teams that are still playing for something, that are playing high-level basketball on both ends of the court. It's not meant to be disrespectful. I just don't know, because we saw a lot of Marcus Sasser this year, and the results were kind of what we anticipated. I think Marcus Sasser could be a lot more valuable, a lot more productive, playing as like that second guard on the court. The problem is, to be a 6 foot, a 6'1" guard that doesn't handle the ball and is that secondary guard on the court, you have to be a really, really, really high level offensive player. And when the shots are falling from Marcus Sasser, it's a lot easier to put him out there and maybe try to make that work. But is that going to be a consistent thing for him where he's, shooting 75% from the floor, 9 of 12 against San Antonio, 6 of 9 against New Orleans? Like, is he going to do that? He's going to hit 5 of his 7 threes every night. I'm willing to bet he's not going to do that. And so I can hear the Marcus Sasser's been miscast as a lead guard in the NBA. And I can understand the frustrations of now seeing him playing in a little bit more of like an off guard type of responsibility, even though he still did some of the point guard stuff in these last 2 games. But again, against junk defenses, it's really tough. And the Pistons have other guys that they can throw out there that are more seasoned, that are more experienced, that have better tenure than, quite frankly, Marcus Sasser does. We're talking about guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley. Those guys are just going to get the benefit of the doubt as, longtime NBA veterans that a second-year guard isn't going to get. So I just don't know if there's a long-term spot for Marcus Sasser in a role with Detroit. And maybe he comes out and maybe he, has another really good stretch here as Cade Cunningham continues to sit, but it would have to continue for a significant part of the remainder of the season for me to believe, like, hey, the Pistons might need to create room for him, not just for this season, but into next year as well. A lot of guys can go in and hit threes and, do it at a pretty consistent clip. Can Marcus Sasser, and is Marcus Sasser being able to do that more valuable than having a guy out there that can also defend, can also do some initiating, can rebound a little bit or whatever? Like, I'm just not sure it's there for Marcus Sasser.
I mean, look, there's a reason they went out and got Dennis Schroeder at the trade deadline, right? Like, yeah, the scoring from Sasser has been great over these last 2 games, but he's also had a combined 3 assists. He's just not a playmaker for others. Unfortunately, that's just where he is at this point in his career. And he's too small to be versatile enough defensively to keep on the court too. That's just where he's at. He doesn't get to the rim enough. He doesn't finish well enough. Those are the limitations he has as a player. But these are the kind of performances that buy you more time in the NBA to develop those skills. So yeah, I just think we should definitely give him credit for what he's done, because this is what you need from your end of the bench players. I think of like Lindy Waters is another guy who, not on the same level as Sasser, but when he's been given opportunities this season in very limited time, that's another guy where, like, I think he has made absolutely the most of his minutes. Like, he's shown you, like, hey, if somebody goes down and this is a break-in case of emergency situation, you can trust me to come out here and conduct myself like a professional basketball player. Yeah. You can't understate the importance of that when you have these kind of hopes that the Pistons do now.
I think you make an excellent point as well. Really, you've had a great start to the podcast because you're making some great points. These performances by Sasser do earn them that extended chance to continue on in the NBA, even if it's not in Detroit. Because, you know, if you're a team like you're Washington, or I'm trying to think of other bottom dwellers in the NBA. But if you're, a bad team in the league and you're looking at this film, you're New Orleans, you're San Antonio, maybe that's a guy that in the offseason you want to maybe acquire for that second round pick or whatever that he's, maybe valued at, or those 2 second round picks, whatever, and see if he can play through mistakes and continue to develop. And maybe there's an NBA player there that does help you and is at least an interesting young guy to play with as you go through your losing seasons. I mean, it's, again, that it sounds kind of disrespectful. It's not meant to be, but like maybe there's going to be an opportunity for him to get a bigger role next year if he continues to have some good performances with Detroit when the opportunity comes. If he continues to capitalize on these games, I find it hard to believe that JB Bickerstaff takes Dennis Schroeder or Malik Beasley or any of these other guys out of the rotation for him. But maybe it does give him that value across the league, that there's a team that wants him next year and wants to see him in a more expanded role, and it allows him to flourish. So kudos to Marcus Sasser, absolutely, for the games that he's had. He'll have another chance on Friday night against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, as Cade Cunningham sits with a left knee contusion. I don't know how you feel about it, Jasper. I think, look, the Pistons are at a point in the season where obviously they're going to be a playoff team. They're the 5th seed right now in the Eastern Conference as we're recording the show. They feel pretty comfortable to be a top 6 seed in the East. I mean, it would take a catastrophic fall apart at the end of the year for the Pistons and one of these teams that's in 7th or 8th to go on a big run to jump Detroit and push Detroit down into the play-in waters. But I think the Pistons are going to be very cautious with Cade, and that's what we're seeing right now. Not playing against New Orleans, not playing against San Antonio. Not super surprising if there's something bothering him. So I'm a little bit surprised that he's not back for the Cleveland game, considering he hasn't played since the 21st. So we're talking about, 5 or so days where he hasn't played and he's been able to rest and recuperate and whatnot. But it looks like the Pistons are going to be very, very cautious with him. Are you concerned that there might be something a little bit more serious going on, or do you think that's what it is? Detroit's kind of playing it safe, allowing him to rest as they kind of have a playoff spot pretty much wrapped up?
Yeah, the Pistons are closer to the 3 seed than they are to the 7 seed. Like, that's where they're at this point. And Cade has a left calf contusion. It's a bruise. That's going to be a painful thing that you want to monitor and make sure it doesn't get worse. It's not going to be comfortable for him. Like, your calf, like, it means anytime he jumps, anytime he runs, does anything, he's going to have discomfort there. And you're at the point right now as a team where these are not must-win games for you. Like, they're not must-win games. You could afford to drop a few here and there. You're already guaranteed to, essentially guaranteed to more than triple your win total from last year. You're going to make the playoffs. Just keep Cade healthy. Like, the playoffs are the focus now. You're going to make it. You're going to be fine. So totally fine with them resting him if that's what the case is. If it is a little bit more serious, that's not great, but it's a bruise. He'll probably be fine unless it's a really, really, really severe contusion. But that doesn't seem like it's the case. Seem like there's a calf strain in there. Like, I'm not worried about it long term. I think he'll be totally fine by the time the playoffs roll around, probably even before then.
Yeah, the Pistons have a game Friday against Cleveland, then they play Sunday against Minnesota. Then they're off another 2 days before playing Oklahoma City on ESPN, so a national TV game. You know that the league, the Pistons, they probably all like for Cade to be active for that game. I don't know. We could see the Pistons kind of hold him out to then really maximize getting him 10, 11 days off and just kind of let him refresh. But I don't think it's anything to be too concerned about. If it is, the Pistons haven't given any sort of indication of an extended absence period, what that timeline looks like or anything like that. It's really just been on a gamely basis that he's been ruled out. So I wouldn't be too concerned. Let's move on now. Sticking with Cade Cunningham, want to give a shout out to Dylan Edenfield. Wrote for palaceofpistons.com this week. Make sure to go over and subscribe there. Links in the show notes wherever you're watching or listening from. Completely free to you. You're going to get all of our content sent directly to your email inbox, completely free of charge. But he wrote this week about why he feels Cade Cunningham should not win the award that he is the favorite to win, and that is the Most Improved Player of the Year award. Really, I want you guys to go read Dylan's piece because there's a lot more said in it than what I'm about to tell you. But the main crux of Dylan's argument is that Cunningham has already had success in the NBA for years, individual success, but it's really now being exaggerated and it's being improved upon because there's a better roster around him. The Pistons have finally put some competent players alongside him, and that the award is for those guys that really have come out of nowhere and made a huge sizable leap from last season when maybe they weren't in the rotation or were playing and just were not nearly as effective as they were this year. So, Jasper, I'll let you start first here. I mean, where are you at with this situation? I mean, should a guy like Cade Cunningham be in the consideration for this award, or should it go to solely guys that are either not in a rotation, a season ago and make a big leap, or are in the rotation, make a big leap? Should it be reserved for those kind of cases, or do, good players that make a star type leap deserve to be in there as well?
I don't care. I don't care about the Most Improved in Player award. This has never been an award that made any sense to me since I got into basketball. Who cares? For me, look, I agree with essentially what Dylan said in there. I think it's kind of weird that Cade for Most Improved is the award that people are focusing on and not JB Bickerstaff for Coach of the Year or Malik Beasley for Sixth Man of the Year. And this is a point that I think Dylan made really well in his article, which is those guys have pretty ironclad cases for it. The reason I don't care about the Most Improved Player award is that there's no, how do you measure it? Like, that's always been the thing to me, because it usually just ends up being the guy who scores more points than he did the year before. And usually in that case, it's just a player who got more opportunity. I guess for me, like, the way I feel about it in regards to the Ja Morant and Cade Cunningham stuff, I thought Ja took a bigger leap than Cade did. I thought Cade was already really, really good last year. Like, he was an all-star level player. The problem was his team was terrible. So for me, I don't necessarily know if, like, do I think Cade has improved? Yes. Do I think Cade has improved a significant amount? Yes. Do I necessarily think he's improved, like, as much as Norman Powell has with his play this year? No, not necessarily. Like, I think the team around him has improved. And that's why, for me, I don't really care about the Most Improved Player. And I think it's silly that Cade is the one who's getting that. Like, I understand you want to give a Piston an award. They deserve it. And I guess NBA media has decided Kenny Atkinson is Coach of the Year and Peyton Pritchard is Sixth Man of the Year. I think Trajan Langdon deserves Executive of the Year more than Cade Cunningham deserves Most Improved Player. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to give it to Cade, it's really Trajan Langdon's award for putting that team around him to maximize skill set. Like, can we put them side by side on that? Like, it doesn't feel like Cade's even in this conversation if it's not for having the improved situation around him. So that's how I feel about the Most Improved Player. I wonder if your perspective is a little bit different. If you're one of those guys that's like, well, it doesn't matter. He was the number one pick, so he shouldn't be eligible for it either way.
To me, I think Cade Cunningham being the front runner for this award is proof in the pudding that those watching the NBA, whether you're a fan or a media member, really haven't paid attention to the Detroit Pistons over the last few years. The only talk that the Pistons have gotten in the last few years from the national media is about how much of a joke they were. Specifically last year during the 14-win season where they gave Monty Williams an $80 million contract and went on a 28-game losing streak. All of the national talk about the Pistons for the last few years has been in jest, has been in a joking manner, in a negative manner. No one's really paid close attention to what the Pistons have actually done on the court, what its players have actually done on the court. it's kind of like, going into this year, there was some talk from on a national perspective about Jalen Duren being this like super big prospect for the Detroit Pistons. And, look at all the double doubles he had last year. When if you watched last year, it wasn't really a great season individually for Jalen Duren. I think it just kind of falls in line with people just started paying attention to the Detroit Pistons from the outside. If you watch the Detroit Pistons for the last few years, you know that Cade Cunningham has been a really good player, and he has gotten better season over season, and throughout each season, he has made strides. So between that and looking at the history of the award, Tyrese Maxey, John Morant, Brandon Ingram, the voters have made it clear the type of player that they're looking for. They're looking for that guy that's already been really good, that's still pretty young, but makes that leap from good young player to, all-star or whatever. Personally, I think Cade Cunningham is above this award. I think if you're a Pistons fan, yeah, you should be more concerned about, does JB Bickerstaff get Coach of the Year for the turnaround that this team has had? Does Malik Beasley win Sixth Man of the Year for the importance that he has every night to the Pistons? I mean, if Malik Beasley's on, the Pistons usually have a really good chance of winning that game. And then lastly, bringing it back to Cade Cunningham, I think you should be talking about Cade Cunningham being in the MVP conversation more than you should be talking about him being in the Most Improved Player of the Year award conversation. Not that Cade's a top candidate for MVP, not that he's even top 3, not that he's even top 5, but that he at least deserves to have a seat at the table for making the All-Star game, for averaging numbers that only 2 other players in the league average, and leading his team to a massive, massive on-court turnaround just 1 year after winning 14 games and going on a 28-game losing streak. Again, not that he is the MVP, but that he at least deserves a seat at the table when you look at how the votes were distributed at the end of the season, and he got some third place. He got some fourth place votes for MVP. I think those awards and that award for Cade Cunningham should be being discussed more than Cade Cunningham winning MIP. Because personally, I think Norman Powell was a great story for this award. And I think he had a legitimate claim for MIP before going down for the season with the injury that he suffered, not hitting the quota of 65 games played that you have to have for this award. Because that's a guy that 4 years has essentially been a role player. He's been a good role player, no doubt, but this year he made a very, very legitimate leap and was a key player on a good team in the NBA. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't feel like, look, if you think Cade Cunningham should win the award, I can totally get the case that you make. You look at the leap that he's made, you look at the leap that the Pistons have made, and a lot of it is attributed to the leap that Cade Cunningham has made. I just also think it's because of the supporting cast around him. And again, I just think, like, dude, shoot beyond MIP. Leave that for the Buzzards. Like, this is a guy that belongs in the most valuable player conversation.
Well, I think the precedent's already been set with Ja.
Exactly.
Like he didn't make an all-star team, an all-NBA team, averaged like 20-7, and then the next year went out and averaged like 28-7, and got second team all-NBA, finished 7th in MVP voting, won Most Improved Player. It seems like that's pretty much going to be what Cade is going to replicate. Like, it honestly could be exactly the same. Like, I would not be surprised to see Cade second team all-NBA, 7th place all MVP, and Most Improved Player. I just think it's like, again, this is why I don't care about this award. It's just like, that's not the most improved. Like, it's just the guy who got a better team around him. Like, Ja's team won more games than the year they did before because the team was better. Like, he stepped up to just play, but he was already a borderline all-star. I guess for me, it's just like, I think a role player having to take on that burden of responsibility like Norman Powell has, not where it's just like, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm getting more minutes. It's like, he's had to step his game up. Cade's doing the same thing he was doing last year. He's just getting more minutes and has better teammates. Like, Yeah, his assists per game are up to 9.5. Do you know why that is? Because he got better teammates. Like, he should have had 9.5 assists per game last year. He just had nobody to pass the ball to. He had Killian Hayes in the corner, for God's sake.
Yeah, he's passing the ball to Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris rather than Killian Hayes and Eugene Omarui. Like,
I'm serious. Like, did anybody that stood in the corners last year have combined every single corner shooter the Pistons had last year? Did they even hit 300 threes like Malik Beasley has this year? Like, seriously, Malik Beasley's going to finish with over 300 threes on the season. He's one of 4. He's going to be like the 5th player to ever do it. It's insane. I think that's the award really that makes no sense to me. I don't know why he's not a shoo-in for that award. The Pistons can't do what they're doing this year. I know Peyton Pritchard's been awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, but I don't see how the Pistons can do what they're doing this year. I think like a guy like Dyson Daniels, we didn't talk about him for most improved. Like, that's another guy. Like, he went from a good defender to one of the best point of attack defenders in the entire NBA. I just think that's such a, I don't know. It's like, what does the award even mean? This is why I don't care about it. What does this award even mean at this point?
Let us know what you think. Leave it in the comments. You can tweet us at Palace of Pistons. Let us know what you think about the Cade Cunningham Most Improved Player of the Year award. Let us know. Let's move into our final topic, and we're kind of revisiting something that we talked about at length last week, and that was Ron Holland. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about Ron Holland, his spot in the rotation. Should he get a little bit of a bump in minutes? Does he need a more expanded role? So Holland is averaging 20 minutes with 12.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists per game over Detroit's last 5 games. Pistons are winning outside of that loss to Washington and are plus 59 in Holland's minutes. The big moment for him was against the Pelicans when he went for 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists with 0 turnovers. The first teenager in league history to ever record that stat line. Jasper, I know last week I was making the case for Holland to get a little bit of a bump in minutes. I know there was some pushback to that. And again, my thoughts last week were not like, hey, push him to 22, 25 minutes a night. But there were just he was in a stretch where he was playing 8, 10, 12 minutes. I just felt like there was some room for him to grow there. I mean, what we're seeing from Ron Holland in this stretch, he's been one of those guys that has really stepped up in the absence of Cade Cunningham, but was even showing signs of improvement while Cunningham was still playing.
No question about it. You said about in regards to Marcus Sasser, like, you don't know if they win that Pelicans game without him. They definitely don't win that Pelicans game without Ron Holland. And it's been more than just the stat lines. It's been the energy that he's been injecting into this team. You've seen it for 4 games in a row, starting with Miami. He comes into the game when the starters maybe are struggling a little bit, the energy is off, the vibes are just not quite clicking, and he injects a level of pace and energy into this team that is noticeable on the floor, on both ends. And I pushed back on you a little bit about Ron Holland getting more minutes. I've had to rethink that over these last few games because as the Pistons starters continue to get more minutes on them and the season winds down, I think Ron Holland's making an excellent case that even if he's not a significant part of the playoff rotation, that going into the playoffs, he deserves to be getting some more looks, especially with Cade Cunningham going down with that calf contusion. It's been like really impressive, the control that he's played with at both ends of the floor. I know he had 4 fouls against Dallas, but he's been pretty solid defensively and offensively. We've discussed his control at the rim. Aaron, he's shooting 84% from 2-point range over his last 5 games. 84%. Absolutely ridiculous. And the degree of difficulty on some of these shots he's taking, I mean, full speed, like sprinting down the court through contact, finishing at the rim, tough layups, like really tough layups, Aaron. The degree of difficulty, I think, is the number one thing. And when those looks haven't been there for him, he's also done a really nice job distributing the ball. Like you said, two and a half assists per game is not super impressive, but the way that he's getting those assists, it's really smart basketball. It's really impressive, and it's the type of stuff that makes you go, hey, even if he's not a big part of the playoff rotation this year, like we've said it for a while now, like we see the vision with Ron. Like Lil Ron, I have high hopes for Lil Ron. Like Lil Ron's my guy. I love it. That's like my favorite nickname of anyone on the team. I love the nickname Lil Ron. He gives like Lil Ron energy. Like Lil Ron seems like a dude who's just like will scrap, will fight you. It's like how Roman gladiators, you know, some of them had very intimidating names, but some of them would go by like Daisy or Buttercup or something like that, just to get you off your game. Be like, you know, Buttercup can't be that tough, can he? Well, let me tell you, Lil Ron's tough, and Lil Ron loves the contact. So I'm a big fan of his game and what he's showing. Aaron, are you on the same boat as me? Like, do you feel the same way you did last week? Are you feeling even more confident now?
I think, you know, if you're not watching the Pistons every night, Ron Holland's finishing is something that I think deserves to be talked about more. Like, he's, you know, 19 years old and is arguably, you know, outside of like Jalen Duren, he's one of the best finishers on this roster. I mean, not only can he finish with athleticism, you know, and with force, like you get him running in transition or you get him open on a backdoor cut, like he's going to get up there and he's going to put out a show. But like also, like you mentioned, like he's finishing around the rim in some really high degree of difficulty situations. And I think as of late, he's only looked more confident doing so. I think that also can be said when it comes to his playmaking. Like Ron Holland's not some world-beating distributor, but I think earlier this year, we'd see him just kind of put his head down and say, okay, I'm just going to try to go up with this and out-athletic someone at the rim rather than maybe make the right read because I don't trust myself to make that kind of pass. And now Ron is making those passes. He's slowing it down. He's not just trying to barrel into you know, two defenders in a one-on-two transition. Like he'll turn around, he'll kick it out, he'll make better decisions with the basketball in his hand. And look, that was something that was talked about in his scouting evaluation pre-draft is like, this guy does not always make the right decisions with the ball in his hands. He actually has bad decision-making tendencies. And I think that that's something that this year we've seen him make a really strong improvement in. Like, forget the, you know, shooting where, you know, he had that one or two good months and hasn't been a great three-point shooter since and wasn't poor. Like, you know, that's going to come over time. That's going to come with more off seasons, more seasoning in general. But what he's, you know, figuring out how to play at the NBA pace and make NBA level decisions, that's something that's really stood out to me for the last few weeks is it's just he's starting to process, and that clicks for a lot of guys. You know, it clicks towards the end of the rookie season. It clicks, you know, going through that first offseason after your rookie year, going into that second season. Like it just, if it happens for someone, this is when it starts to happen, and it's happening for Ron. And he's made a really positive impact on the Pistons. But the last thing I'll say here is like, even if Ron doesn't give you 8, 10, 12 points a game, you never have to question his compete level, his give a shit level. Like he'll come in, he'll be pesky on defense, he'll start talking trash, he'll get under the opposing team's skin. He's just kind of got a little bit of a savviness to him. I mean, even going back to the Pelicans game, you know, he drew a couple offensive fouls on Kelly Olynyk where like he just knew how to get under Olynyk's skin, how to sell the moving screen. Like, not that he's out there flopping, but he's understanding, he's learning how the NBA game is played. And I see him getting more comfortable in his shoes. And it's had a positive impact for Detroit. And no, he's not going to give you a 26, 5, and 6 on a nightly basis. But when you give that compete level, when you work as hard as he does defensively, and he can finish at the rim like he does on offense, you can live with those turnovers that he makes, you know, trying to make the right player. You can live with the missed 3-point shots because you know that even in the bad, there's going to be just as much, if not more good from Ron Holland.
Absolutely. And one of the things that makes it so easy to root for him and so easy to buy into his long-term upside is that he's one of those guys where you really feel like you're watching him grow up on the court in real time. I remember his very first game, how nervous he looked when he stepped on the court and when he missed those 2 free throws against Milwaukee. Like, I remember at the beginning of the season just seeing him and being like, oh man, this kid he's nervous. Like, he's nervous. He's a kid. It's super relatable. You totally can put yourself in his shoes. And watching him go through that and grow in confidence with every game and not losing, even though he was nervous, not losing faith in like the player that he is, what his game is, giving it his all, never letting himself get rattled. Again, you know, not even 40 games into the season, he's squaring up with Jordan Clarkson, against the Jazz. Like, that's who he is. And it makes him just so easy to root for. It makes him so easy to believe in and to want to see him succeed. It's really something that's like just wonderful to have on this team, because not every player's like that. Like Cade, when he stepped on the floor, I was like, oh, this dude ain't nervous at all. This guy's ready. With Ron, it's just a very human emotion that you see with him every single game, and it makes it so easy to connect. I think it's also such a boon for us to have him and Ausar Thompson on this team, because I've said, just because of Asar's physical gifts, I am higher on him long term. But I'm not going to take anything away from anybody who's higher on Ron, because for the reasons we've discussed, like the finishing is so high level, the growth is so apparent, the shooting stroke looks a lot better, let's be honest. And he's also just a very, very high level defender. He's also like a very, very high give a crap level guy. So he has a lot of the things that Ausar has, and he has, Ausar has other gifts that Ron doesn't have. Ron has gifts that Ausar doesn't have. And you really get the feeling that both of them could work out. But if only one of them works out, you're still going to get a really good NBA player. Like, you see where Ron Holland could be like an 18-5-5 kind of guy every night. And it's just because he can finish so well at the rim, because he is so confident and comfortable with his distribution, and because he's so physical on the boards and in the paint. So if he can get a 3-point shot, like, the path to a very high level wing is not hard to see at all for Ron.
Yeah, and I think we should make the point here. We've seen a little bit more discussion about Ron and Ausar and which one should the Pistons be focusing on, or which one does have the higher ceiling, like this or that. I think the Pistons are very intent on making sure both of those guys pan out. And everybody knows that both of them need to develop a 3-point shot. And I think once a week we get a video online from the different beat writers or media that's at practice of, well, Ron Holland and Ausar Thompson are at the hip of Fred Vincent again, and they're shooting, and they've been shooting, and they're just going to keep shooting. Like, that's, it's just like, yeah, the Pistons understand how important both these guys are to hitting their long-term potential if this is the core that they're going to move forward with. And, they're not going to end up consolidating any of these young guys into a star. Like, they're going to continue to develop these guys, and they understand the importance of each of these guys. And, man, if Ron and Ausar hit, like, this team has a chance with Cade Cunningham as their star and a Jalen Duren that's playing really, really high-level basketball, plus Jaden Ivey, who, I don't know what his status is going to be this year. It feels like he wants to be back, but just thinking down the line, like, there's so many pieces here, and Ron and Ausar deserve to certainly be in that conversation. I think Ron has had a great impact as of late. I think, if he's playing on another NBA team where he's getting more minutes and he's allowed to play through mistakes a little bit more, maybe he ends up being in that Rookie of the Year conversation. He's not going to be in the conversation this year simply because he just doesn't play the minutes that a guy like Zachary Richelet does or Stephon Castle does. Like, that's just, he's not had that same opportunity. But what Ron Holland's doing right now, it's making me feel like he might end up being potentially not just a top 5 rookie from this class. He was the number 5 pick in the draft, but maybe he becomes the top rookie from this class. And you go back and you look at the prospects, and when we were sitting here pre-draft, it was like, yeah, I mean, Ron Holland just on pure potential might have, the best shot of being the best player out of this class if things go right for his development. So Ron's been spectacular as of late, and he deserves a lot of credit for how he's played.
I said to Aaron, he was the number 1 guy I was afraid to pass on. And this is exactly why. Like, he's such a Piston, man. He is a Piston. And yeah, you said, look, if you can get both him and Asar to reach their potential, you're talking about the wing equivalent of like what the Cavaliers have in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Like, you're talking about a elite, like the best in the league at that unit type of potential. I really, really think that's how high the ceiling is for them. Yeah, hey, shoot. Asar hit a 3 and it looked pretty good the other day. So we'll see. Yeah. Fred Vincent, just keep at it, man. I cannot wait to see what both of those guys look like with one more full off season, because neither of them really got one this year. Start with the blood clots and Ron being a rookie. So we'll see what happens with the rotation of the playoffs, going into the playoffs. But next year, I think there is a lot of reason for optimism, especially with, Tim Hardaway Jr. being an expiring contract.
So much young talent in Detroit. It feels like every podcast we're coming on and we're talking about one of these guys just figuring something out in their game or having a really good stretch. I mean, such a different vibe from last year. So we were doing it with Ron Holland this week, kind of did a little bit with him last week, but we've definitely talked about Jalen Duren. Obviously, we spent a lot of time talking about Cade Cunningham this year. We've talked about Asar Thompson. Like, all of these guys have had their moments where it feels like they're figuring things out. Everything's starting to click for them. Ron's just kind of getting there last, which is not to be unexpected considering he's a rookie and he's 19 years old. But Ron Holland playing some really, really great basketball for the Pistons as of late. Jasper, that's all of our show. We just got through everything we wanted to talk about. Anything else you wanted to hit on, though, before we wrap this one up?
It's going to be really interesting to see how the Pistons play against the Cavaliers without Cade Cunningham. I think that will tell you a lot about the type of belief these guys have in themselves. Do I think they'll win that game? No. Do I think they will roll over? No, I do not. That's the kind of game that they have, and that's why we love watching this team. Also excited to be in Detroit next week with the Palace of Pistons squad live and in person. We'll be at the Pistons game on next Saturday. So my God, that's coming up soon.
Can't wait. Another opportunity for Marcus Sasser against the Cavs. We'll continue to see, continues to make a case for maybe a bit of an extended stay in Detroit's rotation. But look, that's going to do it for this week's show. Before you guys go, again, make sure you've hit that follow button, you've hit that subscribe button, you've left a like, you've left a comment. What we talk about in today's show that you liked, you disliked, tell us. We always appreciate your support. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast, brought to you by Believe. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.